So you might be wondering how to turn on your parasympathetic nervous system response to calm anxiety. So parasympathetic nervous system response is rest and digest. Hey, my name is Rochelle Walsh. I'm a complex trauma therapist and a coach with an online program. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the parasympathetic nervous system today because there's a lot of it out there and some of it might be just a little bit confusing. So when we talk about, again, the parasympathetic nervous system, we are talking about rest and digest, which is we want to be rest and digest dominant, meaning we want that to be the state that we live in as our norm. And for many people struggling with anxiety or burnout, overwhelm, they have been in a stress response, fight or flight, even sometimes if they haven't known it, because maybe they've been stuck in high people-pleasing, performing, producing. So they've been stuck in fight or flight for a long time, or maybe they're in a functional freeze where it's hard to take as much action as they want to, or they find themselves kind of numbing out. So one of the things that we want to do, again, is activate this parasympathetic nervous system response. So you will see a lot of things, and the question remains that you're probably wondering, is there some kind of magic switch that I can just turn this on and get myself out of anxiety? And so there is a yes and a no to that. And so the yes part is, are there strategies that we can have in our toolbox that will help us calm ourselves, bring ourselves, drop back into the body, be present, actually, change our heart rate and calm anxiety? And the answer to that, the first answer is yes, there are things we can do. Some of those things just include activating different parts of the brain, like counting backwards by 4, starting at 60, deep breathing. We can attend to mindfulness activities that will sometimes, help our parasympathetic nervous system response. There's things that we can do to activate the vagus nerve, like a cold shower, sunlight in the morning. We can walk. There's many things we can do, bilateral stimulation. There's a lot of things we can do to activate this parasympathetic nervous response. But what I want and what I think is really important for people to understand and to ask yourself is, do you want to walk around life constantly being triggered, constantly having to get out of a stress response? Or do you want what I feel like is much more beneficial to constantly be expanding your threshold of tolerance, meaning that rather than just having some tools in our toolbox that we can use to get out of a stress response, what we want to build is capacity in the nervous system. We want to build and strengthen pathways for that parasympathetic nervous system response to really be our dominant response. We want to reduce, and as you do practices consistently, that's what's super important, is that these are not things that we should just use, I'm feeling this way, so I did this thing. These are things like, we don't floss our teeth once we have a cavity, right? We floss our teeth and we keep good dental hygiene because we want to prevent the cavity, and we want to keep good dental health and oral hygiene. The same is true with nervous system regulation. Yes, there are things we can do, and you'll see many things on, Instagram and videos. Can you do shaking? Can you do somatic exercises to release stored stress? Can you gargle and sing and hum and do things to activate your vagus nerve and experience some relaxation? Yes, you can. But we shouldn't be using those things as band-aids to get out of a stress response. What we should be doing is using consistent practices of activating this parasympathetic nervous system on a regular basis so that we are not walking around constantly being triggered or activated. We don't want to, what we want is we have this, they call threshold of tolerance. And by the way, my history is in complex trauma and a lot of advanced training in EMDR and nervous system regulation. And so what we want to do is build capacity, because if you're walking around feeling stressed a lot, what's happening is that your capacity for stress is constantly being surpassed. And to really expand so that you can move in and out through emotions, respond to life stressors. You might get you might have a little bit of alarm and then come back to normal. It really has to do with, our stress response is activated less frequently, and that when it is activated, we get back to normal more quickly. So that gives us overall healthy emotional regulation. So nervous system health, you can't have emotional regulation without having good nervous system health, because when we are in a stress response, we can't think as clearly. We have not much time between stimulus and response, or stimulus and reaction. So we want to be doing things on a daily and consistent basis to really improve our nervous system health. And is it very complicated? Well, knowing the exercises to do can be somewhat complicated. It takes some training to know the right things in the right order, because, for instance, if someone has had trauma and they start to do some of these things like, meditation, sometimes it can be a little disarming, and so there's some nuances in figuring out what strategies. But are there things that are, like, pretty much for most people, walking is something that's healthy, right? In a physical way. And in the world of nervous system regulation, pretty much breathing is helpful for everyone, but it's developing the skill to be able to do it consistently 20 minutes a day, 15, 20 minutes a day, rather than every once in a while when I get stressed out. We want to build these practices in so that we can build that capacity. As we start to do this and we become parasympathetic nervous system dominance, amazing things start to happen. So our amygdala, which is the fight or flight part that kind of is involved in the fight or flight response, starts to actually get smaller, where in people that have had a lot of trauma or live under a lot of chronic stress, it's kind of enlarged. Our prefrontal cortex, we're able to think more clearly. Our hippocampus that specializes in memory, which happens to be covered in cortisol receptors. When we're stressed out, memory, brain fog, things like this really suffer. So as we start to clear that, our body can clear stress. We can be able to better fire parts of our brain that are helpful in calming, and just not get activated or stressed out so often. So we can live life just being really attentive to the present, not constantly waiting for the next thing to happen, or always thinking 10 miles ahead or in the past, or feeling disconnected from our experiences. Now, if someone hasn't had great help with emotional regulation as they were growing up, that can be challenging too, again, but you have to be able to calm first to be able to get into that emotional regulation system and build in some new templates. So a lot of things can happen good. Our body starts to feel healthier, our digestion improves. I have many ladies tell me their migraines go away. They sleep better at night. So nervous system regulation really is a key first step. It is not the only step. There are other things, again, that have to do with subconscious reprogramming, behaviors and habits that we have, patterns of relational engagement, emotional health, moving through emotions with compassion. So there are other things, but definitely nervous system regulation and getting into that parasympathetic dominance is super important. Don't just use it as a tool, use it as a life skill. I work with my ladies in a 90-day program in a very strategic way to make sure that we have the consistency to get through those things. But for anybody working on this issue, just know that if you use it as a daily practice, it's going to be much more effective than using it as a coping strategy. So hope this was helpful. Subscribe and tune in for more videos if you like to hear this kind of stuff, all things related to nervous system and mental and emotional well-being. So love having you here. Bye.